Hey everyone, my name is Joe. If you know my kids, Matthew and Hope, I'm their dad, and I'm going to give a short talk to you today about coronavirus. I know many of you are at home and you've been diligently working on your assignments online or your packets from your teachers, but I thought I'd take a few minutes and give you a little bit of an introduction. Hopefully it will be kind of helpful to what I think would be helpful to know about the coronavirus. I'm going to use some basic things that will be easily understood. I will talk about some things that might be new to you. And I might use some bigger words. So this will be helpful, hopefully, for you, but also for your mom or your dad or any of your friends who might have questions too. So what is the coronavirus? So the coronavirus, you've heard, is on the news. It's something that's all around. It probably sounds very scary. And because of it, school has been canceled and you've been at home and you've been trying to do all kinds of things to stay busy. So what is the coronavirus? So the coronavirus, I guess before I should begin. So my name is Joe and I'm a nurse. I work at a hospital downtown in Baltimore. So nurses, just as a quick, very kind of a brief thing, the main differences between nurses and doctors is the main driving mission of doctors is what they call disease etiology and treatment. So what doctors, more than anything, what they're trained to do is figure out where a problem or a disease came from and what's the best way to treat it. So what's the problem and what's the best solution? There can be many solutions, but they will look through all of their training and knowledge and education, what is the best solution. Nurses, the main driving mission of nurses is what we call health promotion and disease prevention. So if you ever visit your nurse at school, or a nurse at a doctor's office or a nurse at a hospital, we're going to try to tell you things that will be helpful for your own health and also try to give some things, either do some things or follow the treatment plan of the doctors to help prevent some of the disease. So disease is anything that comes in and affects your body. So the coronavirus that you hear about is called the coronavirus because if you look at it, if I look at this, let's say I do this. Sometimes that's how some people would draw a sun. So this is called the coronavirus because it's named after the rays of a sun. Actually, if you look at the sun, images of the sun, it has these kind of spikes that come out all around it. And there are these spikes. And so sometimes this is called a corona, like a crown, like coronation. And that's why it's called the coronavirus. Now, the coronavirus that we're talking about today that's been in the news is what is called, I'm not going to talk about it too much, but it's called SARS-CoV-2 or SARS-2. That's a longer name, but coronaviruses have been around for a long time, for many decades in fact. And actually every year there's probably 3 or 4 coronaviruses that have been in our communities for a long time that get us sick, and that's what might cause the common cold, along with things like rhinoviruses. So there's about 3 main ones that are in the community all the time: coronaviruses, rhinoviruses, and influenza. So you've all heard of the flu and you get your flu shot. Now there's a couple different forms of the flu that are particularly, that we have to watch out for. There's most of the rhinoviruses are kind of mild and will just give you a sniffly nose or maybe make you feel a little bit sick. Coronaviruses are about the same, but this one in particular is a little bit harder because it's never happened before. This particular form of coronavirus is the first time we've ever seen it. So, there may be plenty of like cartoons or things that you guys watch. A lot of them might seem the same, like all the iterations of Pokemon or Power Rangers, they're all pretty much the same. But every once in a while there'll be something that's really new and good and people are like, wow, this is amazing. It's and this one, it may be like that, but also hurts people quite a bit. So this is what we're calling coronavirus. And the disease is what we call COVID-19. So it stands for coronavirus disease 19 because it came in 2019. Actually, this form of the coronavirus was discovered on the very last day of 2019. So what does it do? This is why it gets people so sick. It affects our lungs, mostly our lungs, and it can also affect our tummies. So it binds to these kind of receptors that are in our lungs, and the main point of these receptors is it makes our lungs really like able to expand. So it's called surfactant, and it makes our lungs very like stretchy. So if I take a big breath, I can take a big breath with my chest and my lungs, and when I exhale, I can breathe it out. But it affects the cells that really make that stretchiness, and so when those cells aren't doing that, it's going to be much harder for me to take a big breath. The other thing is this particular, actually all coronaviruses, there's something about them that make it easy to hide from our own body's immune response. So our own body's immune response will be able to like look inside and say like, hey, there's this germ, it's not supposed to be there, and how can we destroy it and take it out? Well, there's something about coronaviruses where the body, it's kind of disguised, or it's a little bit hidden from our body, so has a harder time. And when it does discover it, our body goes crazy, and it's like, hey, there's this thing, we didn't see it before, but now we really need to get it. And it creates this vast response, immune response. Sometimes in the news you'll hear people talk about a cytokine storm. It's basically a reaction when your body overreacts to something that's not supposed to be there. It's the same thing if someone gets blood that's not supposed to be there, like a transfusion reaction, and the body will go crazy trying to get it out, and so the body's actually trying to basically fight itself. The other kinds of cells this can affect are in the tummy, and so you can have to go to the bathroom all the time. It can also affect your taste or your smell. So what can we do, and why is it important that we are doing all the things for right now? So this is mostly spread by what they call large droplets. So if I sneeze and I don't cover my mouth, and all the little particles of my sneeze go all over the table or my hands or everything, the coronavirus can live inside those particles. So the coronavirus itself is just a little bit of something called RNA, and it's in something, oh, actually this is a coronavirus. RNA, and it's in something that's super, super small, but it has to be suspended in that. It can't just like live out in the air. It has to be suspended. So if you ever take like a hot shower, or I guess a warm shower, or you see someone taking a warm shower and you see steam in the air, that's vapor, that's like liquid that has been aerosolized and it's kind of in the air. And after a period of time, that will kind of settle down, and on the counter it will feel wet. Or if you sneeze real far, there's some HD videos that you might see on TV or online. Someone sneezes super far and it will go for a period of distance and then start to fall. And because it has to live in that, it can't just hang around for a long time. It's not the same. Sometimes people will ask, is a fart aerosolized poo? It's not. That is a gas, but pretty much it would be similar to that if you're in your classroom and on your one end of the classroom and someone on the far end farts, and maybe you'll smell it, maybe not, but if they're close to you, you probably smell it. If you heard someone fart, most people want to move away because they do not want to smell it. So it's similar in a way that the closer you are to someone that would have it, if they'd sneeze or they do something, or if they cough and some things would come out, then it could be in the air for a few minutes, or it could land on you. So here's something that's important to remember. If you have the cold or the flu, if you're this person, you could affect one other person, and that person could affect another person. So in the science, we would call this R0, or basic reproductive number. It's about 1. If you have the flu, you'll infect about one person, and that person will affect one person. If you have coronavirus, if you're one person, you will affect 3, and each of these can affect 3. So you can see right away, let's say this is actually right, but in generations, in 1, 2, 3 generations of the flu, 3 people would be affected. 3 generations of coronavirus, this is 9, 12, 13 people would be affected. So a lot more people are affected. So that's pretty significant. There's some other things that make it not so fast as far as its transmission, but those are the main things. So what can we do? If we do something like social distancing or quarantine, so instead of being around all these people, instead of me being around 3 people here, if I'm only around 1, or maybe none, then other people can get affected. So I still may be very contagious if I have it, but if I'm not around other people, or if you're not around people that have it, you're not really going to get it. If you're by yourself and someone else in another classroom farts, you're probably not going to smell it. If you're outside, probably not going to smell it. If you're far away, probably not going to smell it. If you're in your house and they're outside, or they're in their house, you're probably not going to smell it. So it's similar to those things. So I don't want you to just think about farting when you think of coronavirus, but it can be similar in those kinds of ways. So this is why social distancing works, because when you're far from people, the people that have it aren't going to give it to as many, or maybe none. And if you have it, you're not going to give it to anybody, or maybe none. A long time ago, hundreds of years ago, maybe 500 or 600 of years ago, in Italy, in this place called Venice, where they have these roads that are watery, when new ships would come in, they'd have to stay in the water. They couldn't even come onto the dock for 40 days, because people knew even 500 or 600 years ago that if people are sick on this boat, we don't want them coming in. So we're going to make them stay there apart from everyone for a long time. That's where the word quarantine comes from. It means from the Italian 40 days. So someone would have to be quarantined or be away for 40 days. And that's where it comes from. So the other thing that's important is, in addition to quarantine and social distancing, is hand hygiene and wiping things down and being very clean with things. So this coronavirus isn't super strong. In fact, if it's in the sun, even for a little bit of while, the UV light will actually start to dismantle it. If you use any kind of soap or alcohol, Purell or some alcohol gel, anything, it actually will just destroy. The outer cover of this is just kind of like a oily, lipidy, oily kind of thing. So it's like if you have some oil that's just on your counter, let's say some spaghetti sauce from some food, if you just wipe it, you'll still see some of the orange reddish there. If you just use water, you'll get a little bit more, but it's still there. So you really need to use some sort of soap or wipe or alcohol or something to do that. But if you do that, that will kill it and get it wiped out. So the problem is, if I sneeze and it's in the air, or if I sneeze and it goes onto my keyboard or my toys or my hands, and then I wipe my face and I put my hands in my mouth, then if there's any coronavirus on my hands that I got from a table or got from shaking someone's hand, then it could go into my mouth, and from my mouth it could go into my lungs, and that's how I can get sick. So that's why it's very important to always do good hand hygiene, because you never know where it is. It's very small, it's very microscopic. You'll never see it with your own eyes. If you can see it with your own eyes, please let me know, because I'd love to meet you and figure out how you have such good vision. I have glasses, so I wouldn't be able to see it. So anyway, I hope this is helpful. This is a little bit longer than I had anticipated, but hopefully this will give you some basic introduction to what coronavirus is. I work here at a hospital downtown. I have many nurses that work for me. Every day we're taking care of families and little babies and people who are sick, and we're doing our best to take care of them. So please stay home. Please do what you can to do your excellent hand hygiene. Try to stay awake. Don't be in this group. Try to be here, or be here where you're not around anybody. And if you guys have questions, I'm always happy to do something for the future. If your moms or dads would think this would be helpful, or if you guys have questions, I'm happy to do something live, like a Zoom meeting or something else like that. Just let me know. And again, my name is Joe. You can call me Nurse Joe. And if I don't see you through these kinds of videos, then maybe I'll see you when all of this coronavirus stuff comes to an end.